Alright everyone, I hear that PewDiePie's quite real army of fans, which numbers in the tens of millions, has slammed Campo Santo for their false DMCA against him. And that's what it boils down to. Their own statements on the subject of streaming make it fairly clear. No, indeed, they do not have. In fact, they've more or less legally given up the right to file a DMCA complaint against a streamer, let alone when they're supplying commentary, and it's probably fair use anyway. Campo Santo then got its games hit in a massive manner by many people. Said, oh, well, we'll just give this a low rating everywhere that it appears online, and we'll punish them that way. That's like the silver bullet for dealing with cry-bullies. The way that you deal with some firm, some company, that has attempted to censor, attempted to abuse the legal system or anyone in particular in any other way that's doing something shifty, the way that you take care of that is through grassroots activism. Some people say, whoa, this is like mob rule, it's vigilantism or something. No, it's grassroots activism. Why people never seem to have a problem with it years and years ago. Some company moves into your town, starts polluting everything. And so people get together and they organize and they protest. And usually that company just gets more abusive. Like it'll send out some union thugs to go beat people over the head. The protests grow and then you get like an Aaron Brockovich situation or something like that. And it works. And it's generally a good thing. And it can be taken to an illogical extreme at times, like you have people actually getting violent. This is what the left is doing when they're pretending to protest right now. What they're really doing is just being violent. That's all they're doing. They're not solving anything. They're probably making themselves look bad among the centrist population for the most part. I know in my case, I'm like, well, what the hell are you doing? But this is online. They're just rating down some product because the company has quite clearly become morally grandstanding and abusive. Good, good. I support PewDiePie 100% in this. And he was trolling them too, because in several streams thereafter, he was pretending to almost accidentally say unkind racial things. And it was obviously pretense. It's his idea of a joke. Like it's fair. He might not own up to this, but it's fairly obvious that's what he was doing. I thought it was funny. I thought it was hilarious. Oh no, I've got to be totally PC now. See, here's how you do it. And this is a tip for anybody. He's doing exactly what he should be. You want to satirize abuse, but you don't want to get your ass handed to you because increasingly it becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy when someone's making a lamestream media hit piece about you. Pretend to almost accidentally do what they're saying that you do on a regular basis, but don't actually do it. You can get a good chuckle. They can make a presumption if they want, but your fans will know better. The average person will know better, and you've not actually said a racial slur, something offensive. You just pretend that you almost did. They get the point, your fans get the point, and you can sit there laughing your ass off. It appears that he's done that 2 or 3 times. So here, let me tell you why I speculate that that's what's happening, that it's a trolling attempt. Over the course of years and years of making streams, PewDiePie never appeared to have done such a thing. He does it once and everyone gets outraged. He actually gets more attention because of it. So he says, aha, well, that's a winning strategy. So now he pretends to have this systemic problem. It bothers the legacy media because obviously they pay attention to everything he does at this point. I think the Wall Street Journal probably has a staffer just watching PewDiePie videos all day and going around and monitoring his Twitter and everything else so that they can very, very quickly scoop anyone if anything offensive should happen. Because, of course, comedy and satire are bad things, and being edgy is a bad thing, and we've all got to be PC, dumbed down, boring, and cloying. No, that's what we need in the world. We need more boringness. It's a good thing to be boring. But they get shamed because they can't quite make a hit piece about it because nothing was actually said. It's just alluded to. And his fans find it funny, and then it spreads around, too. It gets him more attention. People that didn't maybe know who PewDiePie was. All of a sudden they see him listed, like, unless you're looking up, like, gaming and some of the random humor that he does, you might not have known that he even existed. But now you might because it seeped out into the political and, like, news analysis side of the world as well as the anti-media sentiment that keeps growing and mounting. It's like I pointed out yesterday, MSNBC being top dog of cable news. Who cares? It's a shrinking pool of people that watch cable news, gobbling up, cannibalizing more of those viewers from other legacy media outlets doesn't mean that the pie is still shrinking. Your slice is just a little bigger now than it was before. Well, eat up because it's going to keep getting smaller. Doesn't matter if you have 100% of the cable news viewing audience, because the cable news viewing audience is going to decline by several millions this year. It's going to keep doing that. Well, where does it go? There's nowhere to go but down, essentially. Unless people get nostalgia for watching propaganda, I don't see the problem here for the alt media. Meanwhile, virtually everybody comes to the defense of PewDiePie. I saw last night, what was her name there? Valerie Plame, the former CIA official, the one that got Scooter Libby fired in the Bush administration's one of its biggest early scandals. Of the Iraq era, you know, prior to Katrina, this was what people were talking about. She shared out a link there that was ultimately about neocons starting wars. But unfortunately for her, it also mentioned Jews. And so she gets slammed. I saw Cernovich said, well, I disavow this. And I said, well, I don't. And by the way, so that nobody has any confusion here, I don't have a problem with Cernovich. I just think that we've gotten to the point at which the alt-left has become so abusive that people that really mean well, including Cernovich, are hesitant to actually rebuff them. It's like with PewDiePie's stream there were a lot of people who they're not PC, they're not part of the far left or anything like that. They oppose that culture, but they refused to defend him because they're like, well, it's indefensible. Because then all of a sudden people are going to call me a Nazi, they're going to call me a fascist, a racist, a bigot, everything under the sun. Trust me, they're going to eventually call you that anyway. Just ignore them. Do what you do. If you know that you're not like that, say what you want to say what you mean to say it loud and proud, and just defend against these people. There are too many of us at this point for them to override us anyway. They can't countermand what we want to do. They're the small minority of people who nonetheless are extremely loud. They're extremely loud because they're afraid. Kim Jong-un said it best, the scared dog barks loudest. Well, who's barking loudest in our culture right now? It's like the far left. These people are terrified. They just got smashed in an election. The PC culture stuff is starting to be destroyed. They're seeing it. You've got Gen Z becoming, and I will say this, less PC than past generations. Good. They're going to make some good comedy. It's going to be great for their careers. They're afraid that they've lost the youth. Now to them, of course, there will eventually come a generation that's more left-leaning. It's just what happens. This happens. Look at Strauss-Howe. Read their work if you want to understand the future. Unless we have a nuclear war, Yellowstone eruption or something. But no, PewDiePie did nothing wrong. I don't have a problem with what he said. Look, it's just like with Lawrence O'Donnell there from MSNBC. He has a meltdown on air. And it's jarring to people because he's saying fuck and he's saying shit and he's being kind of mean-spirited to people that are working with him. That's the way that people act sometimes in private. It's just that he happened to have a camera on him when he was acting like that. It's not even that abnormal. Now, I may not go around abusing other people, but yeah, when something goes wrong, if I smash my thumb with a hammer, I say fuck. Yeah, but these people can't say it on air. They can't say it as part of their broadcast. Therein lies the problem. The internet solves this problem. People can say a hell of a lot more online, even on a site that's more censored, like YouTube at this point, certainly Facebook or Twitter. Even there, you can say things that you can't say on cable. You can't say it on public radio. You can't say it necessarily to a group of people that you know in person. You might not, speak the same way. It allows more openness, more transparency. It allows people to say what they really feel. And I can respect that. I sit there doing it every day, like I'm doing right now. PewDiePie does it once, and the Wall Street Journal says that he's a fascist. I feel sorry for the dude for having to put up with that crap. I think he knows more now, in a more acute sense, because he's been targeted by so many different groups. He understands exactly the kind of thing that we're trying to avoid, that we're trying to gravitate away from the censorship and the Zuckerberg-style AI control. You look at Zuckerberg, he looks like an extra from Blade Runner. pointed that on Twitter to much glee from people. We're trying to avoid that. Like, the PC is not fun. It doesn't allow... Mel Brooks comes out. Mel Brooks, of all people. He's like, what, 98 or something? He's ancient as the sands of time. You know, Young Frankenstein, Blazing Saddles, History of the World Part 1. He comes out and says, oh, well, PC is destroying comedy. You know, it's not funny. Blazing Saddles could never be made today. Now, personally, I'll say this. Slightly unpopular, Young Frankenstein was better than Blazing Saddles, by far. Blazing Saddles was good, but Young Frankenstein's like the greatest comedy. When Mel Brooks is telling you things have become too PC, because his comedy's not, even at the time, it wasn't that edgy. It wasn't really that out there. Young Frankenstein, it has some risque stuff, a little bit, and a little bit of the gross humor, just a little. But it's not that out there. Mel Brooks is telling you you're too PC. He's almost 100 years old. What more need I say here? It's just not going to work. PC is boring and unfunny. That's why edgy stuff inevitably is more popular. This is what destroys paradigms within culture itself. PewDiePie's part of the new paradigm. And he's not even that edgy. He's like a Mel Brooks as far as the content goes. It's not that edgy. He draws a Pepe picture at some game and gets into it with Firewatch, Campo Santo. Now his fans lash back out. He doesn't even have to tell them to do anything. He doesn't have to. There are so many of them that at least a proportion, at least some tens or hundreds of thousands of those people will go after anybody who even criticizes him, let alone attempts to take his channel down with false DMCA complaints. Good on them. They're doing the right thing. I would hope that people would back me up if I were being unfairly treated in such respect, and I think that the respective fan bases of any significant figure online would have the same backup. That's a good thing. It defends free speech, because there are a lot more of us than there are popular pundits or political figures of any note that actually stick their dick in the argument. You look at the House and Senate, most of these people, unless it's on some local station in their own home state, they don't even talk. There's a few dozen people that control all within the legislature. There are a lot more of us than there are of them. We can drive policy more effectively anyway. I think Scott Adams, when he says, well, we're seeing increased democratization of culture, we might also be seeing an increased meritocracy in many ways, or technocracy, you could point it out. People with a bigger platform can drive public policy and social policy more ably than some politician who has to wear the tuxedo and go through the lamestream media. It's probably a good thing for culture, especially since it's technically a form of globalism. Not globalism in the involuntary, abusive, hey, shut up and do what you're told sense, but globalism in the sense that people around the world can communicate with one another. They can all have their presence. They can democratize discourse under these various banners. And I think it would be a better world. Yes, I'm going to put this out there. I think it would be a better world if the governance of the world were taken up by people who simply, obviously have a voice, have found that, and people take them seriously because they think there's merit to what they say. Is that not at least better than some carpetbag politician? I think it would be better. You'd probably see less wars. You'd see meme wars, but you wouldn't see shooting wars. You wouldn't have a nuclear problem because there'd be the internet there to facilitate communication. Probably be better internet reception after a while. I'm just putting it, it's kind of a joke when I say this, but it's an interesting concept. As far as PewDiePie goes, yeah, good on his fans for smashing this game development studio. They kind of deserve it. It's a false DMCA. What, PewDiePie himself comes out and says, oh yeah, I don't think this would hold up in court if it goes to a legal battle. I suggest he sue. I think he should. He should sue them for wrongful use of DMCA and for defamation. That's what he should do. He should take them down. He's got enough money. He's got enough of a fan base. He's got the support of a hell of a lot of other people online. I think the more intellectually honest would say that they don't ultimately have a problem. Anyone pretending to be offended by what PewDiePie said is probably lying anyway. They'd have to be real out there to find it really that offensive. It's just like with Valerie Plame. She shares an article out. The subtitle on it, automatically generated, mentions Jews. She is claiming she didn't even recognize that. She was just looking at the title. You know how many people do that? How many people respond to a news article? This is within comments in support of an article, too. They look at the title, they extrapolate all of the content, and they say yay or nay to the article. They haven't even read it. She's probably telling the truth when she says this. This is common. This has been a big problem with legacy media too when they have a website. They put out some article, they got to choose the wording very, very carefully. Otherwise, people don't even understand what's in the article. And it's not that offensive anyway. It's no different than when the Young Turks say, oh, well, white men are dying off and that's a good thing. How's that any different? I'm not seeing the difference. I know that some groups might see a difference there. I don't. Sorry, I'm going to be intellectually honest here and say I don't fucking see the problem here. You know, criticize who you want. Say what you want. If you're going after an individual, that's different. But if you're just you're talking out your ass about some group of people in some way or another, okay, well, who cares? If you're offended, don't read it. Don't look at it. Don't listen to it on the radio. It's like back when the Dixie Chicks were banned from radio. Oh, dude, talking about George W. and the Iraq War, and they're not in favor of bombing little children. We must ban these people from the radio. Burn their records. Oh, no more Dixie Chicks for you. Yeah, and historically speaking, now look back at that era. Look back more than a decade. Who was in the right? Who was on the right side of history there? Well, the Dixie Chicks, kind of. Obviously. They shouldn't have been censored. The Iraq War fell apart. George W. Bush should have been impeached. Same with Obama, though. He used to do the same shit with various journalistic outlets. That's about all. Peace out.